Welcome everybody to the 2022 Trans Day of Remembrance flag raising ceremony, and thank you for coming. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, Chippewa, Haudenosaunee, and Winnett people, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, and acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. As we all know, discrimination towards trans people and violence are higher than in any other community. While the number of deaths worldwide remain high, we have an extreme concern in North America. In North America, in the last 4 years, our numbers have doubled. In addition to recognized and reported violence, we are also greatly affected by the insidious effects of transphobia. We face discrimination daily in access to housing, healthcare, education, employment, and more. That in itself causes us unacceptable levels of stress, fear, depression, and more that often lead to suicide and harm. Having to fight just for your right to exist every day takes its toll. Over the past few years in Toronto itself, we have seen a brutal murdering of trans activist Julie Burden. We've had to live with transphobic rhetoric published in a prominent Toronto newspaper, given the excuse that it was an opinion piece. In 2022, we have suffered another heartbreaking, untimely loss in our community with the loss of beloved activist Samantha Lauzon. It is the unconformed, the uneducated, and the unaware that we must reach, and we must take every opportunity to get this information out and have people understand and realize what we endure every day. I came out when I was 17 years old. I've been doing this for 51 years. In all that time, I have never been more impressed than the great man who stands beside me, because he does not just talk, he shows us continually, every year, his commitment to be an ally. We started these flag raisings in 2014, and he has been at every one, even when he was mayor-elect. It is my great pleasure to welcome Mayor John Tory.
Well, Boyd, thank you. And I want to thank everybody for being here today. It's a small group, but I think it's important that we're here in somewhat intemperate circumstances when it comes to weather, but I think it shows the commitment. But I want to just return the compliment, and in some respects, in many respects. One could argue that I'm here because it's my job to be here, although it goes much beyond that because I am an ally. You are not feeling your best today, we know that, but we went ahead with this, and you're here, and you have been here every one of those years fighting the fight, which goes on. And I just want to say that you are a role model of that persistence and that commitment that I think means so much to so many across the community, not just in the trans community or in the LGBTQ2+ communities, right across the community, the kind of commitment to this cause that you represent. So I want to both acknowledge you and thank you for that. We gather here every year, and it is to stand together against hate and to remember the lives that have been lost. And Boyd went through the fact that it continues. This is not, many remembrance days of different kinds are days that remember people lost in the past as a result of historical injustices or shameful parts of our history. In this case, yes, we're here for that reason, but we're also here because it continues. And of course, it continues tragically to this day, where just yesterday, not here, thank God, but it doesn't matter where it happens. It happened in Colorado Springs, where an LGBTQ2+ club was targeted by a person in what the police themselves described as a hate attack. 5 people so far have been declared dead, and many more injured. And it is It's a horrifying attack, and it is something that we have to stand up and speak against here, even though it didn't happen here, because there are still things that happen here, whether they be direct acts of violence like that, or the others, some subtle, some not so subtle forms of hate and discrimination that are directed against members of the trans community. These kinds of things that seemingly try to not only reject, but to direct hatred and direct discrimination against people who are just trying to be their own true selves, are just not acceptable and have no place in our city. And the first thing that it begins with, as it did with anti-black racism, as it does with other forms of discrimination, is admitting and acknowledging the fact that it's still happening. And Boyd went through a bit of that in the context of things that have happened, yes, right here in our very own city, not somewhere else, right here. And I think we have a commitment and a record that is better than many, but it is no reason whatsoever for complacency. And so I would just say that these days are important to remind people of the fact that these kinds of things still go on, that we have to stand up and speak up and show up and act. Those are the things I say we have to do at the very least: stand up, speak up, show up, and act. You know, the reality is that leaving aside acts of hatred and violence, which are fortunately fewer and further between in our city, there are still far too many instances that happen on a daily basis, out of sight, where people are being questioned and examined and treated the way that no one should be treated in our society. It isn't just about blatant acts of hatred and violence, it's about people being able to be their own true self. That is a fundamental part of how we believe we must live here, we want to live here. And yet, there are still things that happen that are entirely contrary. And so that puts the onus on us to make sure that people are not stigmatized, they're not stereotyped, they're not questioned for being their own true self, and that we certainly stand up against acts of hatred and discrimination. So I won't speak any longer because it is very cold out here, but maybe it's all the more reason why we should stand in. And just say that I spend a lot of time in the city talking about the fact that division is growing around the world. Even here you see signs of this seeping into our sort of daily discourse and our daily lives. People dedicated to division for whatever reason are growing louder. And the fact that they're growing louder also means more people end up listening to them. That's just the way it is. When people are louder, sometimes more people then have to listen to them or think they should. And I think all that means is that we have to push back harder. We have to push back louder sometimes. And I just want the trans community, but the entire LGBTQ2S communities and the whole city to know that I am an ally with people who face that kind of stigmatization, that kind of stereotyping, that kind of violence, that kind of discrimination that is in some way or other, for some reason or other, trying to just stop people from being their own true self. People being able to be their own true self and being celebrated and being seen as an advantage to us to sort of get the best of everybody, no matter who and what they are, that's a part of our way of life here in the city, and that's what life should be about for everybody, including in particular members of our trans community. So I know we've made progress. We will continue to make progress. I will continue to be an ally. I know the city council and government will continue to be allies, but we've just got to keep working harder, and I commit myself to that. And Boyd, thank you for the invitation to be here with you again this year, and I think it's time for two things. That's what I had. There it is. And I hope you find each year, because I know you have about 8 of these now for me, but that doesn't make them any less meaningless, because I think it's important every year that we make this proclamation of Trans Day of Remembrance on this year on November 20th, 2022, and that I hope you give it to some deserving member of the community who can take this as a sign of our allyship and of our commitment to work with you and the other members of the trans community and the broader LGBTQS community and the whole city to fight this kind of discrimination. So I'll put this down here so you have to carry it around.
Yeah, and just to clarify that all of the proclamations that we've been given are going to be given to the archives and on Manila, where they can be viewed. We've been waiting for after all the COVID to be over, so hopefully it'll be done very, very soon. Okay, so let's start with our speakers. We're going to have now Alicia McAuliffe. Alicia is a very dear and proud friend of Samantha Lauzon, who we lost this year, and Alicia,
everybody. This is, I'm gonna cry. Samantha and I go back 20 years. We met in Hamilton before her journey, and we reconnected here in this beautiful city and spent a lot of time here. Samantha moved to Montreal and we continued our friendship over Zoom, because of COVID and because of the distance. We laughed together, we cried together. She taught me lots of things about the community, about her journey. Samantha was always for the underdog. She was always there to help every person that she could. Didn't matter who, didn't matter where, didn't matter what color, what demographic. Everybody was worth Samantha's time. She loved every person she met. Every person she met was better for meeting her. She came to the city to teach about her journey. She would get on the bus in Montreal at crazy o'clock in the morning just to get to Ryerson University to teach the gender study class about her journey. She never left anything off the table. There was no holds barred. It was so that any person who needed to hear something of encouragement, validation, any person who was on their personal journey, any person who didn't understand or who was just learning about the community, she answered everybody's questions. She was patient, she was kind, and I would meet her at Union Station. We'd walk all the way up to Ryerson. She would do her class. I would get to listen about her life, her journey, her difficulties, her struggles, her perseverance, her pivoting, her grit to be the truest, most beautiful form of herself, which was my Samantha, and everyone who knew her, their Samantha, everyone who got to get to know her, and the people who didn't get to know her. I'm so sorry for you, but she taught that class. And everybody there loved to hear her. She gave all her information, phone numbers, emails, anything anybody needed, any time they needed, anytime, anything if they were sad, if they were scared, if they needed to talk. And then we would walk back, she'd jump on the bus and she'd rush home to her fur babies who she loved so much, Lucky, Charlie, and Fifi, who, like I said, she loved everything and everyone with all of her heart. She shone like the sun. And she was a trailblazer. She did this for a long time and she became who she truly was. And she lived unapologetically, loudly, proudly, authentically, and beautifully. And I am a better woman for knowing her. And finding out about her passing tore my heart to shreds. I went outside and I heard wind chimes, and that's how I remember my friend now. And in my lowest times, in the weirdest places, I hear wind chimes and I hear her whisper in my ear, "Remember who you are." And I will always try to be a better person because I know her, I knew her, and she lives in my heart because that's where memories live. Nobody ever really goes away. They just continue. And Samantha is the sun and the moon and the stars, and I can't thank you quite enough for having me here to be able to honor my friend and to be able to say goodbye to her and to be able to speak a little bit so people knew how special she was and how many lives she touched and probably how many lives she saved. So thank you for doing this, Toronto, and thank you for having me here to honor my friend and to just speak a little bit about her because she was the absolute best. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Alicia has some handouts there too, if anybody wants to grab one. Okay. Next. Local and internationally known drag queen with a heart of gold for volunteering. I have to tell you that this person has never said no to me. Anytime I have asked them to volunteer, to help out with anything, the answer is always yes, and wonderful, wonderful human being. Please welcome Nikki Chin Spagnoli. Spagnola?
Good morning, hello, good morning. As mentioned, I'm Nick Spagnola. I'm also known as Nikki Chin. I'm a drag queen here in Toronto. I'm also a bar manager at a restaurant just down the street. And I'm just so happy to be here in front of everybody. Thank you, Boyd, for having me here to just talk about Samantha a little bit, how I knew her, and what she brought to our community. As a performer, we get a microphone all the time, and we say a whole lot of stuff on the microphone, and a lot of it is nonsense, and a lot of it is true to our hearts. We bring in our lives to the microphones where we share it with the audience, and Samantha did more than that. She didn't just use a microphone, she also used just shaking hands and hugging people and making sure that everybody felt welcome and everybody felt like they belonged. Just like what Alicia was saying, the underdog, that's exactly what she presented to everybody. She brought the underdogs into fruition to make them feel great about themselves, to make them feel fantastic. Now, I entertain people across Canada, the United States, everywhere, but also with the help of the community members, I raise money with the guidance of the Imperial Court of Toronto, an inclusive, exciting, and purely volunteer-based not-for-profit organization. This is 75 chapters all across North America, raising money for local LGBTQ plus charities in their cities. Why am I mentioning this? Samantha, she was a transgender woman who was inspiring, graceful, funny, genuine, helpful, giving, strong, honest, respectful, and would not shy away to speak out and educate the public about her experiences in the trans community. We do this often. I've been doing this for over 15 years. I've known Samantha for over 15 years, and she inspired me to be the person who I am today. I try and be as genuine as possible. I try and show people we all belong with each other. We're stronger together. We're a small but mighty community, but mighty is the main word there, because sticking together, we will get through all of this. We will get stronger, and we will make it so everybody feels so welcome. I met Samantha here in Toronto at a bar known as Zippers, formerly known as Zippers, I should say, on the corner of Church and Carleton. She was wearing a red corset, black booty shorts, black knee-high boots, and she was performing on stage. I don't remember what song it was, but this is before I was a drag queen, so I was just a baby Nick at that point. And I saw her and I was just inspired by what she was doing. I was just this small town boy who came to Toronto to go to dance school at George Brown, and I was just enthralled by what drag life was all about. And then it spanned to trans life, and they could perform, and it was amazing to see that everybody was welcome on stage and looked gorgeous and amazing, and her hair, oh my gosh, her hair, it was fantastic. I've lost a lot of mine in the years, but no, Samantha literally truly has a special place in many people's hearts and minds and souls, and she is one of the people that has shaped our community the way it is today, and I continue to strive to be as strong and as supportive and as inspiring as she can. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Toronto. Thank you, Mayor, for being here. Oh my gosh, Boyd, thank you for having me. I know this was last minute. I stayed up until 3 o'clock in the morning writing this, so thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
Excellent, thanks. And just a little note. Both of the people that we've lost in the last 2 years have been trans activists. So again, the toll that this takes is unbelievable. Is Billy Blake around?
We're here.
Billy? Okay. Another friend of Samantha's. Billy's got a few words for us.
So hey everyone, I'm Billy Blake, and I got a message actually from Samantha's family yesterday, and they knew I was coming to this, and they asked that I said a few words on their behalf, which to me is everything. So one thing you have to understand about Samantha is she was a huge part of the LGBTQ2+ community. She community and was a speaker at the Toronto Metropolitan University for many years, where she shared her story to many students. She has impacted so many lives and helped people come out and live their true selves. Samantha's really watched her grow into such a smart, beautiful, and special woman. And she had so much love and passion for her friends and family, and will always be remembered as an amazing aunt, friend, and sister. Samantha will be deeply missed, but the biggest impact will be that the trans community has lost such a strong activist, and I think the best way we can live for today and live for her memory is to continue that fight in the only way she would, non-stop and unwavering. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. That was beautiful. And now we're going to hear from the Pride Network, and we're going to raise our flag.
Thank you, Boyd. Thank you, everyone, for sharing so much about Samantha. I hadn't met her, but I feel like she has brought a bit of sunshine to us right now, which we appreciate on such a cold day. Hi, everyone. My name is Barb Beshrat. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Toronto Pride Network, which is a City of Toronto employee resource group. So we support LGBTQ2+, 2S+ employees to bring their whole selves to work and achieve their full potential to deliver excellent public service. I'm really proud to be here today for Trans Day of Remembrance, a day to memorialize all those who have died because of their identity. They identified as trans, non-binary, genderqueer, drag kings, queens, cross-dressers, and those whose gender identity and expressions differed from stereotypical gender norms. I think it's always important to remember that TDOR started in the United States by Gwen Ann Smith and other trans community members in response to the 1998 murder of Rita Hester, a Black trans woman who really brought together queer and straight communities in Boston in really unique ways, and like many, her murder has yet to be solved. For some, TDOR is a day to mourn the dead and fight like hell for the living. For others, it's a day to reflect on all of the ways that trans and non-binary communities are subjected to institutional violence. We must always remember that trans women of color and Indigenous trans women experience the highest levels of violence, and the annual list of the dead continues to grow longer because of the violence that these women in particular experience. This year, there are about 360 names from around the world on that list, and those are just the people whose deaths have been reported. Mourning and remembering those who have passed, many believe, cannot just focus on those who have been murdered through explicit violence. For me, at least, TDOR is a day to remember all of those in the community we lost from murder, suicide, and substance use. Each year, I take this time to remember two of my former co-workers and City of Toronto staff who I work closely with, Kyle Scanlon and Sasha Hashi. Both were fierce advocates for the trans community in Toronto, and both would agree that TDOR is an opportunity for us to reflect on larger social issues while working to make the world safer and more affirming for trans and non-binary people each day. Thanks for having me. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Okay, I guess we'll just take a minute of silence. Okay, if we can please all take a minute of silence.
Bye.